The current rental crisis as a landlord. Let's talk about it.
My rent just went from $1,360 to $3,900 a month. Also, I'm sick. Happy spring equinox.
Okay, so if she's telling the truth and my calculations are correct, that's nearly a 200% increase in her rent. Now, there's only one situation that makes me think of how this could happen. Her previous landlord must have sold the unit to a new investor, and the new investor recognized that the current rent prices were way under market and pushed them up to at market prices or maybe even just above. That's my thought process on how her rent could have jumped up that much, but that is insane. And there's more crazy rent prices we're about to find out about right now. And stay tuned because I have a theory of why these rent prices continue to climb.
So I got a letter from my apartment complex to Miss Rachel Peterson Connolly. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but basically if Ty and I choose to renew our lease in August, it's gonna cost us $4,008 a month. We live in a 2-bed, 2-bath in South Denver. Just so you don't think I'm making it up, we would be paying almost as much as my parents do for a 7-bedroom, 11-acre house. Colorado, y'all are on some crack cocaine.
$4,000 for a 2-bed, 1-bath. What in the actual hell? God, I love the Midwest. Okay, so here's my thought on why I think rental prices are going up as much as they are. Now, first, I will say this. I have rental properties in Kansas City, Missouri, so the Midwest, and I have raised my rent prices every single year for the past 5 years on my units whenever a lease renewal comes up. I will say this. The average amount I've probably raised my rent prices on my tenants is around $35 to $55 in that range when they renew their leases every single year, and that's for multiple factors. One of my units is an HOA, and my HOA fee has gone up nearly every single year since I owned that unit. Also, my taxes have gone up, my insurance goes up every single year, so I have to raise the rents in order to account for the difference that my prices go up that I'm owning on the rental properties. And now I'll also say this. My rental prices I have my units at, on one of my units, it's probably right around just under market rent. Maybe we're talking $100 under. I'm not worried about that. Now, my other unit is probably $300 under market rent, but I've had the same tenants in there for the past 3 years, and they pay on time. They're great tenants. They let me know when stuff's wrong. I fix it, and I'm not looking to increase massively their rent amount because they're solid tenants. When I have a good solid tenant that works with me, takes care of my property, I'm not going to gouge you every single year when you renew your lease. Now, I understand that every landlord is like that. They want to get every penny they can out of that unit. But for me personally, that's just not how I operate. Now, if I want to cash flow my properties, I'll say that. Like, I want to earn an income off of my properties. I'm not running a charity here. I'm running a business, but I'm also understand the line of work I'm in. I'm not trying to, gouge everyone every single year. Now, here's my theory, though, on why I think prices on rental units are going up as much as they can, or as much as they have been year over year. So what's the situation we're in right now as home buyers, as people who are buying homes? What's the number one thing everyone's talking about? Interest rates. They're sky high. They're sky high from what we've been used to for the past 10, 12, 15 years. So why I think this correlates with rental prices is most people are priced out of buying homes. So when you're priced out of buying homes, what is increased in demand? Rental units. So the fact that there are more people needing to rent because it's cheaper to rent right now than it is to buy a home, for the most part. There may be some situations where maybe renting is more expensive, but for the most part, when you purchase a home, it's much cheaper if you just go rent a home right now. So with that, also, most people are priced out of typical homes that they want to live in or in the area they want to live in. So they would rather choose to rent in that area because it is more affordable, and in return is increasing the demand for rental units. And when there is an increased demand in something, the price tends to go up. So landlords are using that to their advantage, and they're saying, okay, I have a tenant in here who's been in here for 3 years. I'm going to raise the rent up to market prices. Great example of how mine is $300 under market. Whenever the lease renewal comes up, I could easily raise it on them $300. I'm not doing that. Their lease actually comes up in January. We're in discussions right now on where I'm raising it. I raised it up on them then $25. That's all I did. And that's not, I believe I probably could have gotten more, but I'm being, Mr. Nice Guy here. But since that demand for rental units has increased over the years, that is why rental prices are going up, because it's still cheap to rent. So landlords, property managers know they can afford to raise rents. If the tenant needs to leave, then they will be able to find another tenant who will come in and rent that unit for that space for the most part. Now we're starting to see a little bit of turnaround in the market. We are starting to see rental units sit a little longer than usual, so maybe that's not going to happen over the next couple years. But for right now, what we're seeing with rent being cheaper than to buy a home because of where interest rates are and where the price of homes are currently versus where wages are, most people are choosing to rent, especially younger people, 35 and under. So that is why I think we're seeing such a rental crisis right now in America as well as across the world.
Also, everyone telling me like, oh, this apartment's so nice, you should just live in this apartment. No fucking shit. You wanna know how much this apartment is? With this gorgeous view and these updated features and all this shit, it's $5,900 a month, okay? So just to give you a lay of the land of what we're fucking dealing with here in New York, that looks like a perfect apartment. No fucking shit it does. Okay, so this is not what a $2,500, $3,500 budget gets you. Okay, just to let you know.
$5,900. Call it $6,000, why don't we? Do you know what $6,000 a month could get you here in good old Missouri? A freaking mansion. A mansion. You know what the sad part about this is? Unless we see some major recession here coming pretty soon, I don't see this changing anytime. If anything, it could get worse. Prices could continue to keep rising. We had CPI data come out just recently, and it was actually the first rise in CPI data since March of this year. Inflation could pop its head back out at any time and prices continue to go higher. That's the scary part. That's what we need to look out for. And that's why I tell all of you in every single video to get your finances set up now and be prepared, because there may be tougher times ahead.
Rents will explode in this country. $1,900 rent that people are complaining about will be $4,000.
You believe that rents will continue to go even higher?
I think rents will flatten for the next 2 years. 24, 25, you'll have flat rents. And then in 26, because they're not going to build anything, they'll stop all building, all construction. This happened again in 2008, 9, and 10. We're 4 million homes short in America today. We're probably another 40 million homes that nobody wants because they're old homes. They're your mom's and grandma's house. Nobody wants to move into them. In 26, 27.
So that guy right there is Grant Cardone. I would say he's most likely probably a real estate expert. And again, I'm not the one in the business to typically give out predictions of what I think is going to happen years down the road, because generally no one has any idea. We have no idea what's coming ahead in this economy. We have no idea what inflation, what the interest rates, what the economy, what the stock market, what real estate prices are going to do. No one has any idea. Now, people can make educated guesses. They can look at things that have happened in the past. One thing I like to reference to is the 1970s. Again, we're in a little bit different times. The Fed are handling things a little bit differently, but I'll try to pull up a chart here. If you look at what inflation did back in the 1970s, it topped out and then came back down. And then a few years later, inflation came back and actually went even higher than what it did previously a few years before that time. And that's what scares me about maybe potentially what's coming ahead in the very near future here in America. I'm not the one here calling predictions and saying that this is going to happen, because things were handled much differently back then in the 70s and the 80s. We're in different times we're living in now. The Fed's handling things a little bit differently. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying it could happen. And could you imagine inflation going even higher than what it was just a couple years ago? Holy shit-o. Like, how much longer could this last? How much longer can prices continue to go up to where finally people are literally priced out of living their typical life? Like the basic minimums to get by on the cost of living, how much higher could it go? And how much higher is it going to be until people are literally just checked out? That is whenever some bad times can happen. I'm not saying that's coming. I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying anything could happen. And as a guy like me, what I like to do is I like to plan for the worst. So that way I'm set up if the worst does happen. And in order to do that, you have to handle your finances correctly. You have to live on a budget and you have to start reducing your spending now. I know it sucks. I know everything is expensive. People say, well, how can I reduce if I'm already can't afford to buy groceries? You got to figure out a way. And if you can't reduce your spending, you have to figure out a way to increase your income. And I know it's hard to say that, but sometimes tough choices have to be made.
I debated whether or not I want to tell this story on my TikTok, but I think it's just too insane not to. For context, I live in Boston and I just looked it up. The average price for a 1-bedroom apartment is $3,400. The average price for a 2-bedroom is $4,500. So rent prices are pretty high. I live in a 2-bed, 2-bath unit. I used to live with my best friend. She was my roommate, and then just recently she moved out to move in with her boyfriend, and I took over the lease by myself. And I'm gonna tell you guys why I decided to take over the lease by myself. So my best friend and I signed a 12-month lease, and about 2 months before the lease was up, we got our renewal offer. Honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. It was for $400 more per month, which is $200 more per person. And I've heard horror stories of people getting like $1,000 increases. However, regardless of what the offer was, we were not going to re-sign because my best friend had been with her boyfriend for a little while and they were ready to move in together. And I was not about to double my rent to live in a 2-bedroom. So we declined the offer, and this is where things get interesting. The next day, my best friend is browsing apartments on Zillow, just looking for a new place to move in for her and her boyfriend. He comes across our unit. Interesting about this is that it's listed for $1,500 less than what they offered it to us at. Literally livid. And 3 days go by and I decide to recheck the listing for myself. It is now listed for $2,000 less than what they offered it to us at, which ended up pushing it into budget for me, so I ended up re-signing it by myself. If anyone watching this is a real estate agent or works in the housing market, can someone please explain how this is possible? I'm honestly hoping there's like a logical explanation, because I just do not understand how we were offered a rate $2,000 higher than what the apartment was worth. And I don't necessarily expect them to drop our current rate by $2,000, but I certainly wouldn't expect them to raise it another $400. Anyone that knows me knows that I am not a confrontational person, but I did end up going into the leasing office and basically just asking, like, how is this possible? And the guy that I was talking to did not have any answer that made sense to me. Said basically, well, we expect the value of the building to go up over time, hence the $400 increase, but that does not explain the $2,000 decrease when it was relisted. He basically said that it's just an automatic system that does all of this pricing, but I still feel like there's no way there aren't some sort of manual check. I don't know. Can anyone explain that?
So, I mean, I know how my property manager does it, and what happens whenever a lease renewal comes up, she actually reaches out to me or someone in her office, sends me an email with an idea of what they expect the renewal amount should be, whether it's either we keep it the same or we raise it 25, 30, 50 bucks, whatever we deem to see necessary based on the tenants, where it's located in the city, and also what market rents are currently. Now, in this situation, if I was that girl right there, I would be going to that leasing office and I would either be doing one of two things. I would be signing up as a newer tenant or saying that I want to rent it at that price that's offered and go through the motions until they realized, oh, you are the current tenant that's living in this property, yet you're paying $2,000 more than what is advertised. So then I would say, well, I'm not leaving until I get this price offered. But again, I'm probably a little more stubborn than what this sweet girl sounds like, because she says she's not confrontational. But when it comes to $2,000 per month on the line, you can guarantee your sweet ass I'm getting confrontational. Now, my other thought process on how something like this could happen is generally most people, my guess would be they're going to just try to test out the waters first. So they're going to test out to see if their tenants, how high can they really go before the tenants throw up their hands and say, screw it, we're moving out, we're not paying this much rent increase. But let's think about this here. Most people, like, moving sucks. We don't want to move. And if it's maybe a $200, like, it may be worth it every single month to pay additional $200 to not have to move out and go find another place to rent. Because also, let's be honest, if you go out right now and you try to find a place to rent Everything else may be more expensive than what you're currently paying because you may be living under market, or because everywhere else that's offered rents are higher than what you're getting currently. So you're kind of stuck there, and then you have to pay for the rent increase because in your market, rents are going up because of what I mentioned earlier. Home prices are still high. Interest rates are increasing, and most people are priced out of buying homes. So what do they have to do to be able to find a place to live? They rent. So the moral of the story here is, again, as a landlord talking to you guys and reacting to these rent prices and the rental crisis that's apparently going on right now, is one, you always have to negotiate. That's the first thing I would do. If you get a $200, $300, $400, $500 rental rate increase, I would 100% go talk to the person in charge. If you have a management company, don't talk to the leasing agent. Don't talk to the first person in line. Say, I want to talk to your manager, and then say you want to talk to their manager, and then that's who you negotiate with. Come with backing, though. If you can, find comps in your areas of places that are offering current rent rates, and then you can use that to your advantage to say, hey, this other 2-bedroom, 1-bath is currently being listed at $1,500 per month, and you're trying to say that you need to increase my rent to $1,800 per month. Can you please explain to that why? If I leave, do you think you guys can currently rent this place at $1,800? Probably not, because this place is still sitting on the market at $1,500. Those are the types of things that you have to do as tenants to make sure that you're getting the best rate possible for you, and that also the landlord isn't gouging your rent prices just because you're still living there and you don't want to move. So for the convenience factor, they think they can raise that rent on you. So I hope that helps, guys, because really there is a major rental crisis. I do think prices have increased tremendously, but I also think a lot of that has to do basically just with where our economy's at. I personally don't think every single landlord out there is the greedy individual, because I don't think I'm that way. But I also do think there are some probably sour patches that ruin it for most of us and give us a bad rep. But I do think a lot of this stems from the current economy that we're in, with home prices and being cheaper to rent. And unfortunately, it just kind of is what it is. But I think if you go the extra mile to do the homework, to find the comps in your area, you have a lot of negotiation and power on your side when you go into that conversation.